Jake Paul versus Mike Perry. Jake is going up against a younger guy, or when I say younger, I mean younger than guys like Anderson Silva, Tyron Woodley, Ben Askren, and Mike Perry has some combat sports experience. He's been a MMA fighter for a long time. Now he's been bare knuckle boxing and doing very well in that sport. Crossing over into the boxing world is going to be very interesting and how Mike Perry performs against Jake. And the only place to watch this fight is on DAZN. This Saturday, live on July 20th, Jake Paul is going to fight Mike Perry, and it's going to be a fun one, man. A lot of people are underestimating Mike Perry, the king of the bare knuckle, and on Jake Paul's side, he's one of the bigger names in the boxing world. So the rawness of Mike Perry versus the boxing experience of Jake Paul in his own fight, this being kind of his world because he's been boxing a lot longer than Mike Perry has, it's going to be a very interesting one. And again, the only place to watch this fight is on DAZN, and they have a good deal for you. If you sign up to a 12-month DAZN plan, you get $10 off every pay-per-view card, and the first month is going to be free. The entire first month will be free, and DAZN is the global home for boxing, over 150 fights a year. If you're a fan of boxing or combat sports in general, DAZN is one of the best places to go and watch some boxing fights. Now, this deal is only for the US. Americans getting a special deal from DAZN here, so make sure to click the link in the description below, and I'll also leave it in the pinned comment to go and watch this fight on DAZN. And a lot of people are underestimating this guy, right? A lot of people think that Jake Paul is going to just destroy Mike Perry. He's bigger than him. He probably hits harder than him. He has more boxing experience than Perry. Perry's even more wild and more of a brawler than Jake Paul is. But there's some things about Mike Perry that definitely give him an advantage. I mean, they had that face-off between each other. They're so fun, and they get the fans engaged in the fight a lot more when two fighters are able to express their opinions about each other face-to-face like that. And Mike Perry said some things out there that was quite interesting, and I do agree with him in. Now, first, Mike Perry's always been very honest, and he was talking about how Jake Paul, yes, he can hit Perry. He can hit him with some big shots and all that stuff. But Perry said that he was able to take those punches and be very aggressive against Jake. He said he was able to show Jake some things when they sparred with each other before that Jake wasn't necessarily ready for in their fight or in their sparring match back then. And it's a sort of thing that's harder to teach than technique. And that is when you become a nail, right? Some fighters are really good at being the hammer, but they're not really that good at being a nail. So if Mike Perry starts landing big shots on Jake, gets very aggressive, puts a lot of pressure on him, walking him down the whole time, and Jake hits him, but Mike Perry is able to take the shots and keep going forward, how does Jake Paul respond to that kind of fight? Now, Nate Diaz had a similar quality. Nate Diaz has a good chin, a good ability to recover. He puts pressure on you, he walks you down. And Jake did have the power to drop Nate Diaz. So I do think he has the power to also drop Mike Perry. But Nate doesn't have that much power in his hands. Mike Perry hits very, very hard. With all of his knockouts in bare knuckle, all of his knockouts in MMA, the way that he swings at your head, and he has a bit of experience going up against Jake's style, been trying to perfect his hands in the world of bare knuckle, whereas these other guys like Nate, Anderson, Ben Askren, Tyron Woodley, they haven't been training in a specific boxing way for a long time, right? Mike Perry's been bare knuckle for years now, whereas those guys came from MMA into boxing, so they only had a little bit of time to adapt to a different sport. The only exception is Anderson, who fought Julio Cesar Chavez Jr. before, but Anderson was almost 50 years old. If Anderson was much younger, he probably would have most likely have beaten Jake Paul, in my opinion at least, right? Anderson always had very good boxing, except when he fought Jake Paul, he was very, very old, the oldest guy that Jake's ever fought before. And Mike Perry had more experience, even compared to Anderson Silva, for a punching sport. That means his reflexes have already adapted to the world of boxing. The range is similar, bare knuckle boxing to traditional boxing. The speed of the strikes are going to be similar. In fact, Mike Perry actually has to deal with faster hand speed in bare knuckle compared to traditional boxing. So Jake might be even slower than some of the guys that Mike Perry has fought in bare knuckle, like when he fought Michael Venom Page, like when he fought Eddie Alvarez, because the gloves will weigh down your hands a bit, right? So Mike Perry's got more used to this world of combat sports compared to the other guys that Jake Paul has beaten. And there's another thing that Mike Perry was talking about, and that is his left hook being a weapon of choice against Jake Paul's arsenal. What are the punches that Jake Paul is known for? The jab, right hook, and right overhand. And for all of these three punches, he always drops that right hand. He brings it away from his head to defend himself. And Mike Perry is saying that he's going to be fast enough to land the check left hook in that spot where the hand is dropped, catching him on the chin and putting him down. And the crazy thing about that is, Mike Perry beat his last opponent, Thiago Alves, with the exact same thing he just talked about. Thiago Alves was a striker coming from MMA, fought the likes of GSP, who would at times throw winging hooks and stuff like that. And when he cocked back his right hook, bringing it away from defending his head, Mike Perry hit him with a check left hook on the inside of the punch, on the chin, and knocked him out. One punch, on the chin, and knocked him out, which is usually going to give him a speed advantage. And generally speaking, Jake is not too fast of a boxer. He's very powerful, he has heavy hands, and he swings to knock you out with that right hand of his, but he always drops that right hand from defending himself. You see that in the right hook, you see that in the right overhand, and you even see it in the right uppercut on his last opponent, where he changed it up. He was throwing right hooks and then brought it up to an uppercut, conditioning the guard of his opponent. And if Mike Perry's fast enough, he could land that left hook precisely and rock Jake Paul, if not knock him down. And that even goes with the jabs. This is actually more dangerous for Jake Paul than him throwing the right hands. Notice almost every single time Jake throws that jab, he pulls his right hand away from his face. He's pulling it back, and his head is completely exposed. And the fact that his hand is still up, but it's pulled back away from his chin, you can tell that he doesn't know he's doing that, because he is trying to keep his hand up still. It's just not covering his chin. He doesn't notice it. He doesn't notice that he does that. Now, theoretically, they would be able to fix that in the training room and drilling and all that stuff, but it is a habit of Jake that he's always had throughout his entire boxing career. And even if there are moments where he does fix it, there are definitely going to be moments where he draws the hand away from his chin again, and Mike Perry could hit him with that check left hook. The dangerous thing about getting hit by a check left hook from Mike Perry is that whenever Jake is throwing his punches forward, he's throwing his head into the opponent in a sense, right? He's moving forward into the punch. That's going to magnify the damage of Mike Perry's power. Now, the thing about Mike Perry is he has to pick his hands up whenever he's in range where Jake Paul can hit him with the right hand. Jake usually likes to throw that right hand looping, whether it's a bolo-style uppercut or a wide right hook or wide right overhand. The telegraph will definitely be there for Mike Perry to read. Mike Perry should be able to see those punches before Jake Paul throws him fully, so he should pick his hands up, hold a higher guard, because it is different than bare knuckle boxing, with the gloves being so much bigger. In bare knuckle, it's hard to block your head with your hands the same way because you don't have those big gloves. And if he does block the punches or just slip them, he should be able to counter Jake Paul very effectively and precisely with the check left hook, potentially even with his right hand as well. And Jake has changed a bit of his footwork lately. In his last fight, he was more bouncy, moving back and forth off the jab, and this could create an elusive target for Mike Perry to hit. And you might ask, why didn't Jake Paul's last opponent counter him like this? It's because Jake Paul's opponent isn't as good of a boxer as Mike Perry, number one, and number two, he was very defensive. He was giving so much respect to Jake Paul's boxing skills that he wasn't being offensive with rarely anything. He was blocking most of the time, taking jabs to the face, and not really doing much to present his own offense against Jake. And that's why pressure and aggression from Mike Perry is going to be a more effective thing for him than being super defensive like Jake's last opponent. So the main weakness about both these fighters are about their defense, picking their hands up, moving their head, footwork, especially in Jake Paul's case, who seems to have worse footwork than Mike Perry. And also Perry does a better job of keeping his hands up compared to Jake when he's throwing punches. So there are definite real ways that Mike Perry can absolutely win this fight and be one of the biggest names in boxing, from bare knuckle to traditional boxing. Imagine Mike Perry being the guy who avenged all the MMA fighters. Mike Perry would become an absolute legend at that point. So I hope you guys enjoyed the breakdown. If you did, make sure to give this video a like, make sure to subscribe, hit the bell for notifications, and I'll see you guys in the next video, which is going to be the predictions for the fight.